Oh, well, would you look at that? I think it's actually working. Yeah, would you look at that? It's actually working. Well, first live stream in a long, long freaking time. So, I've got myself some popcorn, some water, and let's get into it. Talking about every single condition and effect inside of Starship Troopers Terran Command. So, definitely because of the nature of this video, I thought it best to live stream and just talk about it live and just go from there. So, let's get into it. Talking about every single condition and effect that is available inside of Terran Command. All right, let's get to work. All right. So, as you can see, I kind of got started with this video here that I was going to work on, and I thought a better format would be the live stream. So, let's get into it. I'm going to start with a trigger called everything, because we're going to be going about everything today. Starting from the top of the list all the way down to the bottom. So, let's get started. The very first condition we're going to be looking at is called hatchery population. It's called hatchery in the drop down due to some character limitations. But if we go ahead and add this, and one thing that's going to be part of this live stream is I'm going to be testing each and every single one of these so you kind of know the basic use case of each of these. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and select Bug Hive for this hatchery population check. So what this is going to be useful for is if you want a certain action to happen once a population of a hive gets to a certain level, that's the use of this. So every hive has two defenders associated with it. We've all seen those symbols and everything, so we can take advantage of that in a condition. So once bug hive equals 0 defenders, for example, we can go ahead and spawn a unit of tiger bugs to try and defend the hive. So let's go ahead and mess up this hive a little bit and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and, for the sake of the stream, turn down the audio just a little bit. All right, so we're messing up the hive, and then once this last defender gets taken out, we should see some tiger bugs start spawning here. All right, and there's the tiger bug spawning. So that's how you can use this type of condition here. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So the next one is hive status check. This one's a pretty easy. I'm not actually going to do an example on this one, but this one's a particularly easy condition to understand. What it does is it checks for the status of a hive, very much in the name. So for example, if I want this bug hive to do some things with triggers after we've cleared it, so we've made it completely emptied and we've cleared the bug hive, we can have some actions happen after that. So that's what hive status check does there as far as a condition. The next one is kill counts. So this is definitely a trigger that we can use here. We can actually even associate it to some objectives. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a definition, and what it does is we can have a condition of tiger bugs killed, for example. And then we can say add a pop-up that says good job afterwards. So again, you can tie this to an objective. So it's another unit count type condition there. So let's go ahead and place down some tiger bugs. I'm actually going to place them down here. So once tiger bugs reach 0 in this particular example, I want a pop-up to come up and say, good job. All right, so we've got some tiger bugs to kill over here as well as here. So as soon as these tiger bugs get taken out, we should see a dialog box that says, good job. All right, so that did not work in particularly well. It makes me wonder if that's actually a deprecated feature. Yeah. So I don't believe kill counts actually works. If we did want this to actually work, we would use the units count instead. So I'm going to do tiger bugs again. When tigers alive equals 0, it's going to have a pop-up that should say good job. All right, so these tiger bugs are dead. So as soon as these ones are dead, a pop-up should come up and say good job. There we go. So that's how you would make that actually work instead of using the kill count condition. All right. So let's move on to and actually that's a really good option or a really good opportunity to show how the units count condition works. All right. So objective enabled. So this is a condition that if a objective becomes enabled or disabled, that certain actions can happen. So for example, this capture the base objective is on as soon as the mission starts. So I could have an objective that says, I could have some cool stuff that happens just because an objective became enabled for the player to be able to tackle. Similarly, we have objective status. So we can have if objective is complete or fail, do another trigger, do another action. So this is really good as well. All right. Next we have offensive strength. This is a condition that you would pair with an offensive. So for example, let's go ahead and take a look at offensive. Now, in order for it to actually work, you need to add an optional ID for offensive ID for the offensive create effect. So attack. And then that's where you would put in attack or offensive ID. So that attack that we just set up there. So what this does is it checks the strength of a currently active attack wave. So what will happen is once we've destroyed every single unit, the way that this is set up currently, when an offensive reaches 0, we have killed every single arachnid in that offensive, then we can have additional triggers happen, such as, wow, that was a close one, for example. All right, let's see here. All right. Next, we've got population count. This is how you can run conditions based off of how much supply or war support that a player might have. So, for example, if the player has more than 20 supply because they completed a bunch of side objectives you set up, you can have a trigger add additional arachnid supply to the arachnid supply variable. So that way the waves get harder, for example. So that's one way you could use this, is see how much supply a player has to kind of scale difficulty a little bit. Resource count is an obsolete condition, so don't worry about it. Next, we've got supply CP check. This appears, this is definitely an interesting one. I don't particularly know. Okay, just reading this, I think I know what this is. So if, for example, your supply is above 7, then, yeah, I would not know how this one is configured, unfortunately. The way that it reads, it looks like it would act very similar to population count. Yeah. So I have a feeling supply CP check is a redundant or obsolete condition. Additionally, technology condition is a obsolete condition, so it doesn't actually do anything. Timer check. So just like when we had our bug waves, when we covered in our timer video, what we can do is we can have a condition look for our system name for a timer. So for example, we have a timer system name called attack timer. So we can run a condition that when attack timer runs out, do something. Or equals a certain time. Let's say there's a 10-minute timer and at the 5-minute mark you want rescue to arrive. So that's a way that you can use that. Unit attacked. This one I used, it was either this one or unit damaged. I believe either one would work. I think I actually used unit damaged. But if a unit comes under attack, so very similarly to take damage, I think the damage one is more reliable. But if a unit is attacked, do something. Unit combat. So if a unit is in a certain combat stance, do something. So for example, this is useful for like tutorials or something like that. Kind of like that one mission in the campaign where we were taught how to hold fire with our snipers, so that way we didn't give away our position. So for example, I'm going to do a little setup here just so we can get some feedback. So when our tactical officer is holding fire, it should pop up with a briefing that says, "Good job." So as soon as I hold fire, good job. So that's how that particular condition works. Unit damage, very similar. We can have certain actions happen. This is very similar to attacked. I think damage is more reliable. In fact, if we go take a look at Whiskey Outpost, that was, I meant to load it in the editor. And got to go back to menu. For anyone that doesn't know, the temp _temp is what you use, is what the game uses if you have unsaved changes and you're just launching the mission. So for example, if I change something in here and launch, then it's actually not going to launch from my save file. It's going to launch from the temp. It's going to temporarily override, or it's going to override the temp folder. All right. So now, if I go load up Whiskey Outpost, and I'm probably going to work on a revision to this map, just a little unrelated, just to deal with the lag a little bit better. But if we go take a look at what we have here, unit attacked. So I actually used the unit attacked option there. So if we actually go take a look at that and see how that looks. So as soon as this radio operator gets attacked, all right, this hopper bug's going to fly in. It's going to attack it. So yeah, as soon as damage or attack happens, it should fulfill that condition. That's the word I'm looking for. All right, so let's hop back into our attack waves tutorial and let's keep moving. All right, so we were on to damage. Next, we have unit experience. So this is just if a unit gains enough experience, do something. So for example, as soon as this squad of rifle troopers gets at least one experience level, then we can have some conditions happen. So, yeah, that's simply how that happens. Next, we've got unit killed. This one's tricky. I would actually use unit status over unit killed because it's a lot more clear. It has a lot more control over it. I would just say use unit status instead of unit killed. So we'll get to unit status in just a moment. Unit ownership. This is a awesome trigger for base captures, for anything where a unit would change owner and you want to run a trigger based off of that. So for example, these supply depots. If I want to add extra supply, I would have to create a separate trigger for each of these. But once supply depot equals blue player, then do some actions. So that's what that condition would do. Unit status. This one is a fun one. So this one allows you to check to see if a unit is deployed, to see if a group of units are alive or dead. I believe we actually even use that for killing tiger bugs. No, we used unit count for that. But unit count operates pretty similarly. Unit count is just useful for objectives. Unit strength. This determines how strong a unit is. So for example, we have 12 soldiers inside of a rifle squad. We can run a condition when they reach half health. So for example, if a squad reaches 50% capacity, so if a unit's strength falls to below half, And I believe we can even use unit counts. I would probably use percentage of the whole actual rifle squad instead. But regardless, you can have triggers and effects operate off of, hey, this squad is half capacity. So that's how that condition kind of works. All right, unit type check. This one is a little interesting. I would imagine that what this would be is if this unit becomes another unit, either through use of triggers or actually it would only be through use of triggers. Oh, an interesting way that this could be used is if, let's actually go ahead and clear that. If this becomes a collapse bug hive. Yeah, so it would have to be done through triggers. So yeah, this one has some limited usage because you would probably just run a trigger off of it. Like just right after you change the unit type. Unit count. This is a fun condition. And I actually need to change this guy's ownership. Awesome. Unit count, we used it very similarly in some of the videos for tankers or for spitterbugs. So the way that this particular trigger works is you would, and I've got some Steam messages. All right. Don't know if you guys can hear that. You probably can. Apologies. So the way that the unit count condition actually works is you set definitions. For this example, in this particular objective, we want to check the status of spitterbugs on the map. And in this particular example, I have the checked box, use soldiers count. So what that means is if I had this unchecked, if we were to look and tie this to an objective, this would count as 3 units rather than counting every single spitterbug. So if we wanted to, say, have an objective like in our video called kill spitterbugs, kill 15 of them, instead of killing 15 squads, we want them to kill 3 squads of 5 each. We would want to use soldier count for that. So the way that this is set up is spitterbugs alive equals 0, do something. All right. Hey, Jordan. How do I get the numbers on the icon like the shield or HUD icon? Bug. Okay. So are you referring to like the number 1 for the hive? How do we increase that? Is that what you're referring to there? So how to change this hive to a 2 or 3, for example, right? All right. So the way to do that, thanks for working with me and clarifying that just a bit. So we would have an effect, and I'm actually going to go ahead and close down some of these. This stream, by the way, we're going to be talking through. Hello, Francesco. We're going to be talking through Francisco. There we go. We're going to be talking about everything that has to do with the scenario editor as far as conditions and effects. So that's what we're going to be working on. So to increase hive growth, let's see. I've actually not looked into that. So we're actually going to be exploring this together today, Jordan. We're going to be looking at making this 1 on the minimap a 2, for example. The only way that I'm personally familiar at the moment is by attaching bombardier tunnel. It looks the same. The only way that I'm familiar with it is by adding more tunnels. And let's see, I think if we attach some bugs to it as well. No, so that's not changing it. Yeah, no worries, Jordan. I'm just walking through how to increase the bug hive right now. There was a way, and I saw it. I literally accidentally did it. So let's actually go over to my mission called Paradise Lost, because I did increase this to a 2. And the way that I did it was I attached. Interesting. All right. Let's see if we can brute force this for you, Jordan. All right. So I'm going to do mutation activate, population growth. And let's see if that actually does anything for us. I don't think it does, but we'll see. So when I last loaded the mission, the hive had 2 defenders or population on it. As soon as I click play, we should get that mutation, and let's see what happens then. So it did increase the number of defenders for each hive.
We've got a unit under attack.
So that's how you can use population or you can use mutation activate, population growth in order to increase the number of defenders. But let's see if we can change that marker. I don't think it's minimap marker. Let's see. I don't think it's population bonus either. Yeah, the only way that I am aware, and let's actually do something really quick. Because maybe it's just not reflecting on the minimap. Ah, there we go. So that's how you get it from a 1 to a 2. The thumbnail just wasn't updating there, Jordan. So the way you do that, to make that 1 a 2, you would just add additional tunnels to it. So for example, if you look in the thumbnail, now it says 2 because I had to reload, save, and then put it back into the editor. So just to show you kind of how that happens, if I attach 2 more tunnels, man, I feel sorry for these power troopers, and then I save and load it back in the editor, we should see that 2 turn into a 4. There we go. All right. Excellent question there, Jordan. All right. And again, you can use the effect mutation activate population growth to change the number of defenders that a hive particularly has. All right. So I believe we were on to unit count. Yeah, we were on that. Units near target. This is a fun condition here. So I recommend leaving this little icon and this number. So let me actually restart there. Leave that symbol alone. That is my recommendation. And unless you're trying to do something really specific, use soldier counts off. But what this does is it's an awesome, very versatile, and if I can actually get my screen to work, there we go. It's a very versatile condition to use where, for example, if any unit that belongs to blue team enters this area, do something. Or you can have a condition set up where if anybody on the red team enters this area, doesn't matter what arachnid, it's just some sort of arachnid, that it can activate some triggers. So this is a very useful trigger for, or condition for your triggers. Units selected. I actually use this pretty heavily over in my Paradise Lost mission, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that. And the way that this works is it's definitely a function similar to just a tutorial. Select this unit. So what I have here is I actually have it using a Blackboard name, and I'll go over those in a future video. But, and actually I can probably talk about that in this video here later on. But what I'm doing is once a player clicks this unit, it does some sort of action. So that's literally what unit selected does. I used it pretty extensively through this mission where periodically this convoy would stop and allow you to clear the road a little bit, and then you could click it to make it continue to the next waypoint. So it's definitely an interesting condition that they have set up there. All right. So now we're going to take a look at variable check. This one's definitely a fun variable or a condition to work with. So what this does is it works in conjunction with variables that you set up in your scenario. So for example, I have variable set total underscore waves equals 3. That's my variable. What I can do is I can actually check for that variable. So as long as total waves equals 3, do something. So that's actually how we're doing these bug attack waves, is we're actually comparing two variables to each other. So we're comparing waves defeated to total waves. So this section and this section. So if waves defeated is less than total waves, keep going in this particular example. All right. Visibility check. This is definitely an interesting condition to be using. Basically, if an object is visible by the player, so or even just a location. So if this location is visible, you can have triggers happen with it. Yeah, you can even have, hey, you lost sight of the civilians, for example. So if a unit is not visible, you can have problems there too. Or you can have conditions and triggers play off of that, is what I meant to say. And then the very last condition that we're going to be covering before we start diving into every single effect for this particular live stream is the venerable wait condition. Now, ever since I've uncovered the timeline feature with triggers, I very rarely use wait unless there's just no way around it. But this is very simply just a wait condition. Wait 10 seconds. So if you didn't want to get super complicated with a trigger, you didn't want to micromanage the time delays for every single other effect inside of a trigger, you could just set up a wait. So that's how that particularly works. Now, this next section of effects is quite long. So, and I've actually put together a list of effects that don't work. So, we're going to go ahead and get into these. So, we have an effect called Ability Execute. This is actually how scenario editors, scenario makers have set up plasma bombardment. In fact, I'm actually going to show you how to do plasma bombardment. So the way they do that is they set up a grenadier somewhere on the map where they can't actually do damage to the player. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a plasma grenadier, and I'm going to do the homing plasma ability, effective, which means it's just going to target the point that I target. And I'm going to drag and select a small area right here. So now what should happen is once a grenadier will fire. Let's actually change that to infinitely. Infinitely, they are going to fire at that position. But keep in mind, this is also, the way that this is configured, this is also not going to work, because we actually have to make sure that it has time to recharge its ability and then fire again. So 3 to 5 seconds should be sufficient for it to fire, quote unquote, reload, fire, and then over and over again. So let's actually see if we set that up correctly. All right. So we should start seeing this area getting bombarded with plasma. Yeah, and it looks like my timing might have been off. So actually, let's change that to 8 seconds just to make sure that this grenadier has enough time to actually fire. And yes, it can fire across map. Why aren't you doing what I need you to do, Grenadier? This is the great part with scenario editing. Now, I actually used it pretty extensively inside of my bug house mission. So you can see I've got grenadiers all along the edge of the map. So let's take a look at this. Yeah, I didn't even have that much of a delay. Maybe it's target effective that's causing the problems. Let's go ahead and load back in and see if we can set this guy to work. So I'm going to set it to random. And then let's see if we start getting some plasma bombardment. So if we did everything right, we should see something splash right around here. There we go. There's our plasma blast. Now every 8 seconds, it's going to do another plasma blast here, right on cue. All right. So that's very quickly how you can set up a plasma bombardment. In fact, I'm going to lower that. Actually, I think we're done with that, but that's an example of how you can set up plasma bombardments or use the ability execute. In fact, one of our favorite munitions is actually locked behind a trigger affected ability, which is our favorite nuke. So this is actually a good time to talk about Blackboard. So Blackboard is a system name that you can give to units before they even exist on the map. So then you can create triggers for those units, even though they don't exist, so you can't actually go and click on them. To do that, all you have to do is below the spawn, so inside of the unit spawn effect, below add Blackboard unit, just give it a name that you're going to remember, such as rocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for the unit to deploy. So let's see here. Unit status is deployed. I don't think this is going to work. Actually, that will work. So what we're doing here is when rocket is deployed, we're going to ability execute. And actually, it looks like I can't do that with this guy. So I'm going to actually have to... Actually, there should be a way that you should be able to do it. I'm trying to think. Especially since they used it in the Klendathu tutorial. Ah, here we go. That's what I did wrong. So, most cases, to the right of the select unit button, you can type in a Blackboard name. All right, another question. How did I teleport units to get through the spawn on the other side of the door of map outpost 29? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and save where I'm at here. And that's actually, I'm actually going to save it on there. That's actually an excellent question. I'm glad you asked about that. So over here on my Whiskey Outpost map, the question being asked is, how did I teleport the units inside? Very tediously, I will say. So I've got this trigger called Enter Whiskey Outpost, and you can see why this was a little tedious. But what I've got is when Trooper 1 enters this area, redeploy the unit to this area. Now, I could have just easily done select a unit, but for some weird reason that only past Lion would know, I decided to use Blackboard names extensively. So the way that I did that was I have a trigger here called Blackboard names where I select a unit and I give it a system name that I can reference later. So to sum it up pretty quickly, and a lot easier, I could do that, I could do that, and I could do that, just to make it a little simpler. So when that rifle squad enters this zone, this is the unit near target condition, I use the unit redeploy effect to teleport them inside the wall. And then just to make sure that they don't get bunched up on top of each other, what I'm also doing is I'm setting a move order just so that they all spread out into the outpost so they're a little easier to click, a little easier to find, hopefully in theory. But yeah, so I use the unit redeploy effect there. I hope that answered your question there. All right. So we've got this unit here. Now there's a secret effect that I'm going to ability execute, which is the Klendathu nuke. I'm going to have it shoot somewhere in this area as soon as that unit is deployed. So I'm going to have it wait 3 seconds after it's deployed. You're welcome, Jordan. And then we should see a spectacular Klendathu nuke. Hopefully it doesn't wipe out everyone. Alright. So we've got the bugs attacking. These are our rocket troopers, and as soon as it deploys, 3 seconds later, it should fire a nuke. There's our nuke. Ooh. Oh, and I have it set to repeat. I forgot I have that trigger set to repeat right now. But that's actually how you set up nukes. And by the way, while I have everybody, I might as well go over one thing that I missed in my kind of general overview of triggers, effects, folders. I missed a button. And I've been having to show people it, and it's a very useful tool, and I feel bad that I accidentally left it out, which is the clone button. You can clone selected item. So you will have to go and tweak everything. But if you're finding yourself needing to tweak some things or repeat a trigger over and over and over again, but to different units, you want the same effect to happen, but to different units, instead of building from scratch, you can use the clone button and then edit from there. The same thing happens if you clone a folder. It clones all triggers within that folder. So that's one thing that I left out by accident with one of my very first videos. So I just wanted to share that there. All right, so I have talked enough about ability execute. So let's move on to ability unlock. So what this is it allows you to lock or unlock certain abilities. It's a very long list here, but you can lock and unlock abilities that you don't want the player to actually use. So that's how that effect works. Achievement unlocked. So this one is definitely something for the developers, and I believe they know what the ID numbers. In fact, I think you could technically go in and give yourself the achievement IDs or give yourself the achievements. I don't know, but that's what that is. It's well and far above and beyond me, but that's what that is. AI operation is actually a obsolete trigger effect, so it actually doesn't do anything. Next, we have AI team set. This allows you to set a AI team. So let's see here. I think I need to actually make a AI team. Let's add this unit to an AI team. Let's see if that actually does anything now. No. So I unfortunately don't know what this does, and I have not messed with AI teams at all. So I unfortunately can't really comment on anything AI team related. I know it's an extremely powerful trigger tool that you can use. I just don't know how to use it yet. All right, moving on to battle tier set. Very simple. You can set up. You guys are starting at battle tier 3, and I'm going to let you know about it. So that's what battle tier set does. Blackboard add unit. This is a very powerful if you want to give one of these units a special name. So that way, if you're going around and doing trigger work, instead of, oh, once this unit gets over here, I want it to do something. Instead, what you can do is you can select a unit, and give it a name. So that way, if you're all the way over here, instead of having to go all the way back, selecting your unit and coming all the way back, you've already given yourself some names that while you're over here, you just type in the name for your trigger. So that's kind of what I did with my Paradise Lost mission, where as I was pathing out the path for the trucks to follow, I didn't want to go, all right, this unit, move here. This unit, move here. I wanted to stay over here, so I preset up Blackboard names so I could go truck 1, move here. Truck 2, move here. Truck 3, move here. So that gave me flexibility and reduced the tediousness of when this unit gets here, when this unit gets here, when this unit gets here. It reduces that back and forth. So I definitely recommend using Blackboard names if at all possible, especially for units that are kind of hero units, for example, or objective units. Now, conversely, Blackboard clear, you can set that, hey, you know what? I don't want to use this during the mission anymore after this point, so get rid of the Blackboard name. I think there's only a handful of uses that someone would get out of this particular effect. So your mileage may vary. I would probably just opt to keep the Blackboard enabled on a unit just to have the option, because if later on you try and tweak some things with your mission and you're referencing Blackboard names, not remembering that you actually cleared it, then that gets messy with trying to figure out, why isn't this trigger working? Oh, right, it's because I'm no longer referencing that Blackboard name. So Blackboard clear doesn't have a lot of clear uses to it, I would say. Briefing add. This is a fun one. So I'm actually going to spend a little time on this particular effect right here. So what this effect does is it allows you up to 315 characters, including spaces, allows you to type in briefing text. Hey, there's a lot of bugs over here, just whatever you have there. Now, the reason why it always starts with briefing trigger 90 text is these are actually JSON, part of your, it's either a JSON or a CSV. Let me actually go take a look at that. It is a CSV. So those are actually in your CSV file for the mission. So you can either set them up inside the JSON file, you can make tweaks, not JSON file, the CSV file, or what I recommend is just typing it out inside of the editor here, and keeping in mind that there's a limit of 315 characters currently with the briefing. Now you can type in more, but the game, once you're actually in the game, will only display 315 characters in that talking bubble. So these two options, select location and select unit, I've not played with. I typically combine it with a camera focus, just manually. So I'm not entirely sure what this actually does. Let's see here. Let's actually explore it. So instantly reposition the camera, so yeah, this is an integrated camera focus. Or you could focus in on a particular unit, looks like. So that's what those options do. And again, you have the option of using a Blackboard. So the next option here are the different heads or icons you could use for your actual briefing. So you've got Hawthorne, Ava Advisor, Ava Cortez, Victor Yarrow, the Propagandist, so that's just going to be the icon of the Federation logo. You have Hidden Hawthorne, which is just static screen. Soldier A just has no icon, it's just a text bubble. And then Hawthorne Private. So those are the different icons that are currently available in the editor. I hope they add more to the editor, so that way we have some more options and more faces to play around with or reimagine for our own custom characters. I would love another like psyops kind of person, so that way Victor Yarrow can go you can go on secret missions with Victor Yarrow to stick it to some other psyops guy, because that seems like some psyopsy stuff to do. So the next couple options we have here is briefing speed. You can either pause the game during, so all action and everything will pause during the actual briefing. You can slow-mo it, or you can have it run at normal speed. Now, typically I run most of my briefings with normal speed, particularly because I just haven't really found the need to do slow-mo yet in my missions, but I'll probably use that in a future. Cancel all queued briefing pages. I have zero idea what this is, and I have not done any experiments on it, unfortunately. Next, we have disable user input. This is how you add a cinematic look or black bars to your briefing. So when this is checked, when this is checked, the briefing will have those black bars kind of come in and then play the briefing. And as long as there's less than a second delay between briefings, the black bars will stay put. So that's good to know. And then right below that, after you select the box for disable user interface, another option comes up if you have it enabled that asks you whether you want the briefing to be skippable or not. So you can check that or uncheck that, however you want. And then reset camera. So for example, if you're having the camera move all over the place, you can reset the camera to the last player inputted camera location if you have this selected. So the next thing that we have is duration. So duration is how long the briefing is going to last. So how long the text is going to stay visible. So I recommend, if you're going to be typing in a briefing, and I'm sure most people are actually going to be doing that. If you're going to be typing in a briefing, I recommend saying it out loud, reading it to yourself, kind of in the speed that you would want your players to read it, and then add 1 or 2 seconds after that. If you have audio, I would add 1 second to the end of your audio clip. Now, if you're just having voiceover happen, you don't want a briefing pop up or anything like that. So you're kind of just walking down and you're like, man, this sewer sucks down here. Then what you would do is you would have no briefing text and you would have 0 duration. So that way no text pop-up comes up and it's just a voiceover. Now to add voice to your mission, what you're going to do is you are going to add a audio file, either WAV or MP3, to your scenario folder where the actual mission is. And then the way that you reference that is you just type in the name of the file. So for example, if I have a briefing sound that I want to add to the briefing, excuse me, what I would do is I would type in the file name. So let's say it's called sound. So instead of doing sound.mp3, instead what I would do, I would just input the name of the file, just sound, just for this example. Now, this is where the next little section kind of gets a little fun. The post-briefing triggers. This is fun where you can enable or disable, or not disabled, you can enable other triggers or folders to enable at the end of the briefing. So, for example, if I want extra troopers to arrive after a briefing comes in that says reinforcements are on the way, I can go ahead and disable this trigger, and as soon as the briefing's done, the briefing will enable the respawn. And by the way, can everyone? No one can see my cursor. That is unfortunate. Let me go ahead and fix that really quick. There, now you'll be able to see my cursor. Wow, streaming for an hour, and you guys are just being patient and just going, okay, I thought I saw something highlight. All right, so now that we actually have the cursor, I can kind of talk a little bit more about this. So, for example, this briefing ends. And as soon as the briefing ends, I wanted to activate the extra troopers arrive. Reinforcements are arriving. So this says reinforcements are on the way. And then as soon as the briefing is done, it is then going to enable the trigger that spawns reinforcements. Now, the section below it allows you to enable folders. So you can enable entire folders of triggers through a briefing. So that is how the briefing add effect kind of works. All right. We spent a long time on that one, but briefing add is a pretty in-depth effect to work with, and I wanted to make sure that it was covered outside of its own video. So, camera focus. This one is definitely going to be really good for players to call attention to different things like, hey, go over here and take out tanker bugs. So, all that you have to do is you can either select a location or select a unit. So then the camera is going to focus in on this particular unit. Or in my particular case, I'm going to have it run over and kind of look at an area. You can change the speed of the camera. So for a casual pan over, I think anywhere between 25 and 50 is a decent camera speed, just so it's not jarring. Of course, it's your mission. You can make it feel however you want. If something super urgent happens, you can make it happen super fast at the default speed, and it's actually a really fast speed. I'll actually show that here. So I'm gonna, and I don't even have instant selected, so we'll go ahead and show what happens with a speed of 150 for that camera. Yeah, it wasn't super fast. Let me go ahead and select a different location. Now, for my purposes, I always thought 150 was too fast. Yeah, that could be fast for some, but if you wanted a casual kind of pan, for example, 25 seems to be a good fit. So 25 is good if you want a slow pan of a battlefield that's happening. So, and then there are options for instant, and then manual movement cancels focus. So what that means is if it's in the middle of a camera move, if the player moves their mouse or does anything, it cancels the focus. So that's what that option there does. And let me actually go ahead and see if I'm missing anything. Doesn't look like I'm missing anything, at least from all those notifications I've been getting. All right. So we just covered camera focus, checkpoint save. So this one is a fairly self-explanatory effect where it just saves to the checkpoint. So it auto saves for you. So you have the option to notify the player that they just reached a checkpoint or not. All right. So we've got quite a bit of effects left to cover. And I'm starting to run out of steam, unfortunately, here. So before I go, before I kind of hop off and we'll do a part 2 starting at checkpoints and just moving on down the list, are there any particular questions or triggers that you want to ask a question about and that I can help kind of brainstorm and brute force for you and assist? Any questions out there? I'll leave the question open for 30 seconds if there's any triggers that you need immediate help with. All right, hopefully the lag isn't natively affecting anything. And I think that's all the questions that we have, and we'll just go through the rest of the list in a future live stream. This video should save and post as, oh, can you put like 3 trooper squads in a dropship or only 1? Ooh, that's an excellent question, Jordan. So if you use the unit spawn mechanic, technically it's 1 squad per dropship. But I have a sneaky little trick that you can use. So let's go ahead and we're gonna use this area as our testing ground, and in fact I'm going to set up an instant camera move so we don't have to worry about panning over here. So that's actually a really fun question there, Jordan. So the way that I would do that is I would spawn a unit. So I would spawn a Viking, a landing variant of a Viking. Now, with the landing and taking off variants of Vikings, I highly recommend giving them blackboard names. So I'm just going to call this Viking 1. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spawn some more units. So I'm going to spawn a rifle squad. And let's see, is this a typing spot? Does not look like it's a typing spot. Oh no, there's no typing spot. Well, so we can't have it spawn straight from where the Viking is, but what I can do is I can find the spot and kind of match it. And I'm going to instantly warp new unit on location. I'm going to call this Trooper. I think I have a couple other. I'm going to call this Trooper Drop 1. And then I'm going to wait about 5 seconds. I'm going to clone this particular one. Drop 2. Drop 3. Change the timings of this a little bit. Instantly warp unit on location. Yeah, that should work. And then I'm actually going to give some unit move orders. So I'm going to do unit move, Trooper drop 1. I'm going to have him move down here. Unit drop 2. Oh, the locations didn't save. And then location or Trooper drop 3. I'm going to have him run all the way over there. I'm going to give them about 2 seconds to kind of react. And we can play around with the timings there. And then I want that Viking to disappear. So I'm going to use unit type switch. I'm going to use the blackboard name, put it in this area here, and then I'm going to do a unit type switch to the takeoff variant. And then I'm going to do unit remove Viking 1. I'm going to remove it after 5 seconds. So that is all highly conceptual. So I'm perfectly willing for this to not work. By the way, I just got a notification. The audio stream's current bit rate is lower than the recommended bit rate. Is my audio coming in okay for everybody? All right, let's see if this works. So spawned all 3. Okay, so definitely I messed something up with that. But we can see that it's almost conceptually right. So it's landing. So let's change that to a 1. Maybe it's because the area wasn't revealed. So I'm going to reveal this area. I'm actually going to change these locations a bit. Okay, let's see how that works. So we saw that it almost worked. All right, so it dropped in, 3 units spawned, and then the Viking left.
We've got a unit under attack.
All right. So that's kind of how you can get it to happen. It might seem a little janky, but that just comes around with playing with the timings a little bit. Oh, that's why the revealer wasn't there. So let's go ahead and actually take a look at that one more time now that I have the revealer in the right spot. All right, so the Viking's going to come down.
We've got a unit under
It's going to
attack.
open up. Our 3 units are going to come out and they're going to move. And then the Viking is going to disappear. So we can actually play around with the timings a little bit for that move order. So I'm going to go ahead and, because they're instantly moving, it helps us a little bit. So I'm going to have him move there. I'm going to have him move there, and the other one was fine. And then I'm going to wait a couple seconds for the Viking to leave. That was a fun one. I actually was not sure if that was possible. I mean, conceptually it was. So we've got the 3 squads going, and then the Vikings are going to peace out.
We've got a unit
All
under
right.
attack.
Jordan, I hope that one helped you. Kind of just show how it was conceptually possible. So if you needed to take a screenshot, well, this stream recording should be available, and you'll know it would be near the end. So this is kind of how you would do that, using Blackboard names to remove units, to place units, to spawn units, and then to use the instant function. So that way they didn't come down on their own dropships. All right. I hope this video helped everyone kind of learn more about the conditions and effects. And I know we covered all the conditions, and we covered up to checkpoint for the effects. So in the next live stream, we'll cover the rest of the effects. So awesome. And in addition, we helped Jordan out with a couple things that I wasn't even really sure of, but we worked on it together. All right, everyone. I hope to catch you all a little later, and have a good one.